Today, we are tackling a really big and honestly a pretty sensitive topic. What does the Bible actually say about poverty? It's a question that has sparked so much debate, and we're going to dig into it. You've probably heard all sorts of opinions on this, right? Is being poor some kind of curse from God? Is it a sign of a personal failing? Or is the story a whole lot more complicated than that? Let's jump in and see what the source material actually tells us. So first things first. Before we can even begin to understand the Bible's perspective on this, we've got to get on the same page about what poverty even meant back then. Because let me tell you, it's way more than just not having money in the bank.
To really get this, you have to look at the original language. Take the Hebrew word ani, for example. It's often translated as poor, but it means so much more. It carries the weight of being afflicted, of being humbled by circumstances, of being oppressed. That one word alone completely reframes the entire conversation.
So, you see, it paints a much bigger picture. Biblical poverty, as it's described, is this all-encompassing condition. Yeah, it's about lacking the basics like food and shelter, but it's also about being pushed to the margins of society, having no voice, being exploited by others, and even feeling a deep spiritual emptiness. It's something that affects the whole person.
Okay, so if that's the definition of poverty, then what's God's relationship to it? When you start looking through the text, a very clear and, frankly, very consistent message starts to pop up.
Look at this passage from the Old Testament. The language here is so active, isn't it? It's not passive at all. It talks about upholding the oppressed, giving food, watching over the foreigner, and sustaining the most vulnerable people you could imagine, orphans and widows. This is a picture of active defense. And that theme, it just flows right into the New Testament without missing a beat. Here we have Jesus himself quoting an old prophecy and saying, yep, that's me, that's my mission. And what is that mission? To bring good news, specifically to the poor. The through line here is just impossible to miss. So the big takeaway from all this seems to be that compassion for the poor isn't just a nice suggestion. It's presented as a core command, something that's absolutely fundamental. Okay, this brings us to the really big misconception we need to tackle head on. If God is so concerned for the poor, then why are people poor? Is it, like some people argue, a direct punishment for something they did wrong?
So on the left, there's that common idea that poverty is a punishment for sin. But on the right, you see what the source material actually argues, and it's a direct challenge to that. The texts are pretty clear that you just can't draw a simple, straight line from someone's suffering directly back to a specific personal sin. Instead, what we get is a much more nuanced and, honestly, a much more realistic view. The Bible actually points to all sorts of causes for poverty. Things like systemic injustice, people with power exploiting others, the devastation of war and natural disasters, and yes, sometimes personal choices like laziness can play a part. But it's almost never boiled down to just one thing. So if poverty isn't just a divine curse, and if God is on the side of the poor, what's that supposed to mean for people of faith? What's the right response? Well, this is where we get to the idea that belief has to lead to real, tangible action.
I mean, it doesn't get much more blunt than this, does it? This passage from James is just a straight-up takedown of empty words. It basically says, your thoughts and prayers are meaningless if you don't actually do something to help. True faith, it argues, has to show up in your actions, or it's not really faith at all.
And those actions are spelled out pretty clearly. It's about more than just charity. It's about actively fighting against injustice, restoring dignity to people, being generous with what you have, and making sure that love is something you do, not just something you talk about.
And here's a really important clarification. The critique in these texts isn't against having money. It's aimed at the love of money, at greed, and at the kind of comfortable attitude that can make us totally blind to the needs of people right in front of us. And we'll leave you with this final, powerful thought from Proverbs. It basically says that how we treat the most vulnerable people among us isn't just a social issue. According to this text, it's a direct reflection of what we think about God. Now that is definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining us.